Media and the government want you to believe the official story that 20-year-old Thomas Crooks tried and failed to assassinate President Trump. That he was a lone gunman, right? That's the official story. There's now overwhelming evidence to overturn that official story and raise serious questions that at the very least he had help, and at the most there were multiple shooters. We spoke to an eyewitness who was in the bleachers behind President Trump. She witnessed Corey being shot and killed and saw gunshots hitting multiple locations. And we're going to share that interview with you here in a moment. It's shocking. It's heartbreaking. She's an amazing woman. She comes from an amazing family. And we're going to hear her story in a second. It'll blow your mind. Now, first, though, moments ago, the House of Representatives subpoenaed the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle. Here is from Congress of the United States of America and the House of Representatives and the Committee on Oversight and Accountability and Congressman Comer's office saying that, wait a minute, you were going to testify before Congress on Monday about the failure of the Secret Service, but now it looks like Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, has stepped in and will not allow her to testify. What? Really? What is Alejandro Mayorkas trying to prevent her from saying in front of Congress?
Well, it's interesting, on the same day that DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, says we're going to do our own investigation, meaning Congress, we don't really need you. You don't need her. We've got this. So you need to step back. She actually doesn't need a congressional testimony. She doesn't need to be photographed or videotaped answering real questions. We're on this one.
Someone in the chat says, Clayton forgot to shave today. No, I didn't. I intentionally didn't shave today. You want to hear a story? The other day, I shaved and cut my nose wide open, and blood was pouring for like 20 minutes. Like an hour. I couldn't stop it.
Yes, so, I had to run to the drugstore and get him a styptic pen.
So I'm holding off on the shaving for a few days.
So he's rocking the 5 o'clock shadow
I got the
on
5 o'clock.
Purpose.
Yeah, it's not unintentional. Thanks to the chat for being eagle-eyed, though. I appreciate that. So now, according to the subpoena, Kimberly Cheadle was set to testify. She's not any longer. And so now, as you point out, Congress is saying we're going to take matters into our own hand. We're going to subpoena. We want all of the diagrams, photos, aerial information, communication that you guys had on the day and leading up to this event. Fascinating. So we'll see if we get answers from Congress on this.
Including what was the plan? We know what was executed. We know where people were and where people were not. Quite obviously not, right? Yeah. But was there a different plan? Because there are some people, including Dan Bongino, who was former Secret Service agent, saying, oh, no, there was a plan to have people on that roof. So what happened?
She stood them down. Right. We now know she stood them down. They were told to stand down and not go on that roof for their safety because of a sloping roof, which is, okay, that's now her responsibility. That's her fault. Why did she ask them to stand down and not go on that sloped roof?
Right.
Which everyone is mocking now, of course. So you need to ask yourself.
The memes are everything, though, about the slope. I'm at least having fun with that. I hope you are, too.
Yeah, if you're watching on Twitter, you see the cows on slanted roofs and so forth. They have cows and all sorts of things on slanted roofs. So anyway, I want to know why Mayorkas doesn't want her to testify. Why? What is Alejandro Mayorkas trying to hide by not having her go in front of Congress? And new video has just surfaced from the deep state, Satan herself, Victoria Nuland. Here she is just a few hours before the shooting, guaranteeing that Trump won't be president because a surprise is coming.
Our economy, et cetera. So I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be president. So if that's what Putin's betting on, he's going to get a unhappy surprise, I think. That is number one.
An unhappy surprise. What could that be?
I mean, she seems very psychic. She knew the Nord Stream pipeline would not go into effect. That's strange.
She's great at predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if we should hire her for some kind of, Madame Crystal Ball events. That'd be funny. She might be fun at parties.
She'd be great. And yeah, it'd be like, call me now. What was her name? The old, the woman you call the hotline. Call me now. Anyway,
I don't know.
Victoria. Anyway.
I'd be checking her family tree to see if that shooter came from, if he's anywhere in her branches.
Well, yeah, I mean, other than the fact that he was in a BlackRock commercial inside a school, and then BlackRock, of course, we know their connections to the federal government and the CIA. So other than that connection, who knows? But again, they want you to believe that he's the guy, right? Thomas Crooks. They want you to believe that he's the shooter, right? Meanwhile, CBS is reporting that a detonator was found on Crooks's body right next to where his body was shot and killed on that rooftop. His parents also called police on the day of the rally. Really? He's missing? He's 20 years old?
We're learning the shooter's parents called law enforcement on the day of the rally to say they couldn't find their son. We know they're cooperating with law enforcement, and this comes as a new photograph obtained by local station WPXI shows a detonator device found next to Thomas Matthew Crooks' body after the attempted assassination. Crooks had explosives inside his car, found parked near the rally, and bomb-making materials inside his home. The alarming photo raises questions about whether Crooks had other plans as he opened fire. Less than 200 yards away from the rally stage, while positioned on a rooftop, which the Secret Service says was within the perimeter delegated to local law enforcement.
And now we're learning that police knew about Crooks 3 hours before the shooting. He came in with a rangefinder, and police and Secret Service said they'd keep an eye on him. They were aware of him. And new video from DC Drano this morning reveals the shooter was walking around 1 hour beforehand. Take a look. So you can see him here in the background there, walking around, scouting out the location, apparently. This is 1 hour beforehand, walking around, looking up, security. What's this guy doing here? But that's an hour beforehand, 1 hour ahead of time. And police didn't engage him. He was allowed to leave the area. Where's his gun, by the way, at this point? Well, he was actually allowed to leave the area and only return with it was able to come back with a backpack. Eventually climbing on the ladder near that HVAC unit onto the structure behind the buildings and then onto the roof.
Well, some reporting says that he went through security check.
He did
and
go
security said,
with a
let's keep an eye on him. But then they didn't. But then let's, the same way you keep an eye on your kid when you're at a barbecue.
So you bring a rangefinder, which is not maybe altogether that crazy. I mean, after all, you've got a lot of individuals who, are using it to be able to see closer.
Sure.
So that, you want to, like you wear, use binoculars at a musical or something like that, right? To get a closer view of the stage.
Like at the opera, those.
Well, yeah, like the little monocle thing.
Sure.
When I go to a concert at a festival these days, they open your backpack and they check it. You're going into a presidential convention with a backpack that's not checked?
Well, interesting piece about the backpack story. I spoke to an eyewitness on this who said they were told and sent emails before their arrival, no bags. Not allowed to bring bags, no bags. And eyewitnesses were seeing other people were bringing bags and saying, well, they're going to be upset because they're going to have their bags taken. Like, why are you bringing a bag? We got emails saying explicitly no bags. And then they were able to bring bags right through security. They didn't take people's bags at all. They hardly even looked through them. This is unbelievable. So what's going on here with the bag searches? They received emails saying no bags. People showed up with bags and were allowed to bring bags in. Okay, that's a huge lapse. I'd love to hear Kim Cheadle's response to that. Why did they make that sudden change? Why was that suddenly allowed to happen when they had received precautionary emails ahead of time? I wouldn't bring a bag if I saw that. I'd be like, no, they're going to take my backpack.
Right.
Right? So why even bring it?
I mean, Clayton's been known to smuggle burritos
into a movie.
Places, where we're not supposed to bring in food.
Yeah.
He has done that.
But not a rifle.
But not in a backpack. In his pocket.
Now I just carry burritos in my pocket, if you know what I mean. All right, so now we have new video evidence also shows the shots fired at the hydraulics that were coming from the back left side of the stage. People reported shots hit, and then you can see like a gas exploding. People are wondering where all this like mist and gas was coming from. Now we know that was hitting this hydraulics behind the stage, and then it created like a bit of a cloud there. So this is coming from the left side. And you can see on the left side of your screen this person ducking down as well. And these shots coming from the left side, according to eyewitnesses. And we have eyewitnesses saying these initial shots came from the direction of the gymnastics building that we talked about here yesterday on the show, which is about 400 yards away. And again, this is also in the same direction as the water tower from that direction to that stage where that hydraulic section was hit. And where when those other bystanders were also hit behind the stage area where President Trump was speaking. over 400 yards away. A building, by the way, the gymnastics building, that was vacant on Saturday and which had the same line of sight as the water tower. Multiple eyewitnesses now say the water tower direction. Shots were fired from that location. Multiple eyewitnesses.
And they had been right by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But what we do know...
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, "It's the sniper, it's the sniper," and he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
Gentleman behind me, I was one seat, he was to the right of me. He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here.
CNN almost had a heart attack yesterday when U.S. Army sniper Corey Mills was on CNN and suggests that the July 13th assassination attempt on Trump could have been a setup. And he also pointed out the water tower, and Kate Baldwin flipped out. She's like, "Oh my, what? You're saying this was a setup?" And he's like, "All the evidence seems to," he's like, "I know, I hate to say it." And they're almost freaking out. What are they going to do? Cut away from him? But here he is. He's done this thousands of times. He's a veteran U.S. Army sniper. And he said, just doesn't add up. There had to be a setup. Watch.
I look at all of these things, and I look at different videos where an assailant will pull a firearm on a law enforcement officer, and the first thing they do is they immediately pull and draw and mitigate the threat and the risk. I ask why the local law enforcement officer did not do so. The other thing is that when you set up an advanced team, I keep hearing this about the perimeter elements.
Yeah.
The perimeter is actually established by your threats that are in the area. So if I don't have any threats outside of 100 yards, okay, fine, I can cordon off a certain area. But if I have a building 160 yards perfectly adjacent to the stage, that's an obvious threat, especially with an elevated position that has overwatch. Mm-hmm. That's a sniper's paradise. And, we talk about Eagle's Nest. You also have, which no one talks about, but the water tower.
So what I'm hearing from you is it's not a failure on the ground for sure, but 100%. Also a failure in advance?
I think it's a failure in advance. I think it's a failure to...
So then he dives deeper into the setup and the water tower. It's great. It's 8 minutes long. I encourage you all to watch it. Now, earlier today, I spoke with Melody Hook, an eyewitness. She was there. She was behind Donald Trump in the bleachers with her husband and family. She saw Corey shot and killed right before her eyes. She says the official story is not true. You need to hear this, and wait until you hear what she says about the shooter's bomb-making evidence and the bomb crew and the FBI who showed up to take away that evidence. Watch.
The shots came from behind that red Harvester that was sitting there. It didn't come from in front of it. Yes.
So it didn't come from the building that everyone says it's coming from.
Well, see, that's just it. We were in the bleachers. Corey was positioned over here. He was on the far side there was 3 sets of bleachers. Trump was in the middle. We were here. And then there was another set off to the other side. We were in the same set that Corey was in. So he was
Corey, who lost his life, the firefighter who lost his life.
Yes. He was clear to the one end, and we were kind of towards the other end. We watched the snipers go up onto the roof, get into position. And prior to that, I said to my husband, okay, we have a 5 o'clock start time. Trump's to speak at 5 o'clock. What's going on here? So the snipers did not go onto the roof. I look back on my photos last night's time. They didn't go onto the roof till 5:08. Is the time I took pictures of them climbing up the roof on the 2 roofs behind us. We only saw 4 snipers positioned that evening. Could there have been more off that we couldn't see? Possibly, but those are the only 4 that we saw. So they get up there. It was around 5:08 when I was recording them, and they kept looking. After they got up there, they kept looking to, straight ahead of them. And down below on the ground, there's military. But I said to my husband kind of jokingly, I'm like, wow, seems kind of lax, not that much presence of, protection right around where Trump is going to be at. For somebody as big as what Trump is, I was a little bit dumbfounded. I jokingly said to my friend the day before that, she says, listen, I'm worried about you. I don't want you to go into this. There's crazies everywhere. I said, listen, we're going to the safest place I feel we could be. There's going to be so much Secret Service there, blah, blah, blah. I said, the only thing I'm worried about is my cell phone dying because I don't know if my battery's going to last. Like, just joking about it, because I felt safe. Fast forward ahead a little bit, we get to the point where it's almost time for Trump to come out. And they start, playing different music and everything. And music starts, Trump starts to come out. And of course, we're all focused on him. No, that's who you're waiting to see. You're not going to look around at anything else around you. You're just focused on him. He comes out, like I said, he talks to my son and his, my friend's dad, like they're yelling, "We love you, Trump." And he stops and points at him, says, "I love you too." And just calm and cool. And he goes out and interacts with some people, goes up and starts talking. And like, we're only a few minutes into it. Like, he only spoke 10 minutes. Right. It wasn't very long. He was speaking at all. So all of a sudden you hear like all this commotion off to our right. And it's just like, but like I said, you're at a Trump rally. It's noisy. People are not quiet at a Trump rally. So I just kind of looked at my husband, gave him like this weird look. And at that point, I think he was more this way than Trump. Like, he's starting to get, so we're just sitting there, and all of a sudden you heard it. You just hear the gunshots. And sorry. I looked down at my niece, and I just yelled at the boys. I said, "Get Riley." So they dove, they just like dog piled on top of her. They're just laying on her, covering her. There was a couple of kids behind us, and I grabbed the little girl. I just held her and I said, "I got you. I got you." And I laid on top of her I put her down in the bleachers and where your feet go. And I'm laying on her, and I just start praying. Like, please, God, please make sure we're okay. Save us, Sorry, my dog's barking. I'm like, please just save us. And I was just trying my hardest to compose myself, but I didn't know what to do. So, we're all laying there, and the thing I remember the most was Riley looking up at me, and just the fear in her face and the screaming. She would not stop screaming. That's all it was. It was just pure panic. And the shots just acted like they lasted forever, and they weren't stopping. And I'm telling you, I never ever, it was surreal. It was just, I did not dream something like that was going to happen. I saw Corey get hit I saw him get shot, and I yelled, because you got to think this all took place within a matter of seconds, seconds. And I yelled back, like where we were at, the bleachers were kind of open, and I yelled back at the security behind us, and I yelled, "He's been shot. He's been shot." And I think at this time they could all, just everybody was stunned. Like, nobody had a clue what to do or where to go. And by this time, then they come up around, and our set of bleachers was just flooded with cops. Like, right now, they just come out of everywhere. Let's just put it this way, where my kids were sitting at, when we look at the pictures of how the bleachers were, I don't know how it missed them, because they were right in line with all of that, just the way everything was going. And yeah, and I am beyond angry. I am beyond frustrated, because this could have been 1000% prevented. There was nobody over there. There was nobody to watch us, and there was nobody to protect us. And when you have that many people there, and there's a chance of something like that, I feel you need to have more than less. And there was definitely not more than less that day. I want answers. I want to know why we were all put in such danger. Like, and a good friend of mine, like my phone was blowing up because so many knew we were there. And a friend of mine messaged me. I don't want to say names or anything, but she messaged me and she says to me, she says, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. You know, everything's okay. We're home." And this was later that evening. This was later into the evening. And she says to me, she said, FBI and bomb squad are at our house. I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well," so I was asking her last night, I said, "How far away are you from where this all took place?" And she said, probably like, 10 miles maybe, if that. They found the white van. The white van was found. She saw them tow it from right around her location. It was right next door to her.
10
the white
miles.
van that was supposedly full of explosives, and that guy was supposed to have had a detonator on him. Now you tell me why he goes to all the hassle when he has a van full of explosives and a detonator. Why was it parked 10 miles away from the fairgrounds? 10
miles. And how does a 20-year-old scrawny guy in summer heat walk with a gun all the way from 10 miles to this location?
Exactly.
What did she say the FBI and the bomb squad said to her? Did they say anything to her?
All that she would tell me was that they told her that they could not leave their residence. They were to stay indoors and they could not divulge any information. I don't care if Trump is if you hate him tremendously, if you can wish evil upon somebody, you need to find your heart. I mean, we need God back in our country so bad. I went to church yesterday and prayed with our pastor after work because I don't know how to navigate this. I don't know how to be strong for my son. I don't know how to be strong for my niece. I lay down at night. I hear the screams. I hear the shots. I see all the fear on everybody's faces. I see us all laying on top of each other, trying to protect each other. How do you get that out of your head? Like, I don't know how to go about. I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah. I mean, think about having to dive onto your child to protect her in those stands, and then those people watching somebody right a few seats over from you be killed in Corey.
And until that moment, I hadn't considered how intimidating this is for Trump supporters as well. Who's going to feel safe now going to a rally? And how intimidating this is for the political process. It's very discouraging for those of us think that we are exercising our right to support our candidate of choice.
Right.
And what the repercussions are for that. Something that has been haunting me all day is that the Butler County Sheriff, Michael Sloop, said that the officer who climbed up on the roof encountered the shooter, had the gun pointed at him, and then climbed right back down, said, well, that guy is not a coward. He's a hero, because had he not interfered, then the bullet would have been fired sooner. President Trump would not have turned his head. And so that makes it a near miss. So that guy is a hero. But you can't have it both ways, because by that logic, that guy got the fireman killed. And so you're just choosing one life for another, because by that logic, had it hit President Trump, it would have missed the innocent civilian. And so you're choosing which life to value there, which is a horrible thing to do. So I can't get on board with that. Like, oh, we just delayed the crime, because isn't the job of law enforcement to stop the crime?
Also,
full stop.
Also, it's a lie. Because we have eyewitnesses who saw that police officer climb up the ladder, and confront, get face to face with this individual, and then fall off down to the ground.
Right.
So not, oh, there's a guy with a gun. Okay, you're shooting a gun. You're pointing a gun at me. Let me back off. I'm going to go back down the ladder. No. This person, he just fell off. He just fell off the ladder onto the ground.
Do you think What are we surmising from that?
Well, I'm saying that this idea that he was like heroic and he's like, you better put that gun down. I'm going to back up. And he bought time for President Trump.
Right.
Like he saved President Trump's life because he backed up.
Right.
And then he fell. There was no reporting of that from the sheriff. He fell off the ladder, fell down to the ground.
But again, if you're taking credit for saving Trump, you have to take responsibility for having the fireman killed. That's the only way that logic works. Right. And so then that family has now a case, in my opinion. If you've just said we saved this guy by delaying this, then you're responsible for the death of the innocent man. I don't know. I would like to, again, I have an appetite for consequences for all involved in this. So,
and the 2 motorcycle police officers who assisted the Trump team when they were leaving, and they were now suspended as a result of it because they didn't have the authority to go after and help the Trump team. So 2 motorcycle police officers we're now also hearing reports about. So I think the official story is now collapsing. And I think we need to be very skeptical when the government tells us anything. Mm-hmm. And you're having all of these eyewitnesses. And you have, for instance, Melody and her husband, who are avid hunters, who are around guns all the time. They know. And you have all of these eyewitnesses who are seeing individuals and hearing gunshots coming from a direction that was not where this building was. Why do you also have Kimberly Cheadle telling these Secret Service officers not to go on top of that rooftop? Mm-hmm. Why was there no one else in the water tower?
Right.
Why were these locations not secured? Why was their security cleared out behind President Trump during the speech? All of these things. And now Kimberly Cheadle is not going to be testifying because Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, doesn't want her going before Congress. Like, really?
Well, yes. And it'd be one thing if her story was consistent, but her saying that about the sloped roof when that's not as sloped as where they had the snipers, like
doesn't make any sense.
Whole logic falls apart.
No, it never was cohesive to begin with. And
I'd almost believe it more. Natalie, we were talking about this morning, it was pretty hot that day. It would almost be more believable if she said, well, it was hot that day. We didn't want these guys on a hot roof.
It was cat on a hot tin roof.
Cat on a hot tin roof.
Actually, that's a redacted viewer who pointed that out. Like, it was record temperatures, so it might have been hot up there, and he's laying there for how long? His behavior seems more and more to me almost like the Imperious Curse from Harry Potter. Like, he was put under something, doing something on someone's behalf. But I think another interesting part of this is that as this narrative crumbles, how the media continues to hold to the single narrative, right? We've seen rumblings around, it was Iran. Okay, there was a threat of Iran, but there was no increased security because of Iran. And they continue to lack curiosity about these pieces that continue to have the rug pulled out from under them. So that just makes us want to ask even more questions because we're not even a week out from the event. So we're going to continue to ask them here on Redacted.
No, and I also should point out, I've said multiple times here on the show, the deep state will not allow him to become president of the United States, right? Mm-hmm. And we have confirmation of this from multiple Democratic sources. Chuck Schumer speaking on behalf of the CIA, basically.
Yes.
Warning that something bad is going to happen to President Trump if he keeps needling the CIA and the deep state, basically. Victoria Nuland.
Yes.
Just hours before saying the same thing. So, again, they do not want him to become president of the United States, regardless of how you feel about him and if you feel like he's like divinity walking in a human body. But nevertheless, the deep state is not happy with him. They do not want him to be president of the United States. And they absolutely fear that he comes in and he wipes them clean and he shuts them down. That's their greatest fear, that he ends their jobs.
Yes.
So we'll have more on this. We're going to continue to follow this story, and we're going to continue to look deeper into a lot of the questions that still need answering, and we hope that we get them, but we will follow that. Well, another assassination attempt against President Trump is coming before the election. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of a current Secret Service sniper in a newly released internal memo. We'll get to that part of the story in a second. But first, today we're diving deep into what was clearly a cover-up of the Trump assassination plot by the Secret Service and the FBI. What if I told you that the Secret Service, a once revered institution, was supposed to hold them up in such high regard, tasked with the protection of our nation's highest leaders, is officially entrenched in a cover-up? We're seeing it as clear as day right now. Would that surprise you at all that they're involved in this cover-up? Let us know in the comments. What if I also told you that the FBI another cornerstone of America's security apparatus, is knowingly spinning a total lie by omission and a narrative that they're trying to put forth to shield the truth. Maybe trying to protect the Secret Service in this. Would that surprise you to know that we know, of course, all of this? We know that Director James Comey were directly involved in exonerating Hillary Clinton before they even had completed the investigation into Hillary Clinton and her email server. How do you do that? How do you collude with Democrats to push a fake Steele dossier in order to keep Trump from becoming president? That's a fact. So we know the track record of the FBI. Well, the FBI just lied by omission right to the United States Senate in front of Congress. We'll get to that part in a second. But first, new evidence today that we want to get to has surfaced that shatters this official story about the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. So let's start with the stunning video evidence here. This is the brand new video evidence that Fox News has obtained from an eyewitness that shows Crooks, the shooter, pulling himself up onto the roof, then running across it moments before the gunfire. The footage is absolutely bone-chilling because it's clear, it's undeniable, and yet local law enforcement and the Secret Service on the scene did nothing about it. There was the shooter's location 150 yards away. Why were the officers who had a clear view of the roof so grossly negligent in this? There's a clear line of sight to the stage where Trump was speaking. The acting Secret Service director had no adequate explanation for this lapse yesterday during testimony. I even quoted him saying, "I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured." I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured. The video shows the shooter in plain sight well before his attack. I mean, look at that. It's ridiculous. This wasn't an intelligence failure. They had eyeballs on him. The Secret Service maintains snipers could not see him on the roofline. I could see him on the roofline. The Secret Service couldn't see him on the roofline?
Maybe they were very engaged in Trump's speech. They just forgot why they were there.
They were looking at his immigration chart up on the screen. They were so enthralled by it.
Wow, that guy's dropping truth bombs.
And just think, their eyes are trained. Like, they are highly trained to see anomalies, like to see things that don't look normal in a crowd.
Right.
That's their whole purpose, right? They're supposed to ignore what the president is talking about, basically. Eagle-eyed, moving around like a lifeguard.
Yeah.
I've seen lifeguards that had better eyes on things than these guys did. This wasn't an intelligence failure. They had eyeballs on this shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, on the rooftop. They saw him. The Secret Service maintains that snipers couldn't see him. They couldn't see him. This is proven false now with this video. The Secret Service is now actively trying to cover this up, hiding information from Congress and the American people. In fact, they just like they deleted all the text messages on January 6th. So convenient that they covered up and hid all of those messages on that day, right? Well, the Secret Service cover-up, according to the Judicial Watch, the Secret Service has rejected a Freedom of Information Act request that sought key documents about the whole thing. This isn't just bureaucratic red tape. This is them actively withholding that information from the public and the information the public has a right to know. So here's Judicial Watch. They say the Secret Service rejected their FOIA requests for any records about the assassination attempt on former President Trump. And these were records related to the assassination attempt, and the agency refused to produce any documents. Ronald Rowe, who's the acting director of the Secret Service, was grilled by Senator Mike Lee about why this rooftop sniper location was abandoned and why the Secret Service is lying about Trump requesting additional protection. Listen.
It's my understanding there was a sniper team assigned to a window with complete overlook, complete view of the roof, the same rooftop, sloped rooftop where the shots were fired. It's also my understanding, according to some whistleblower accounts, that post was abandoned. What can you tell me about that? Why was it abandoned?
So I saw that from the colonel's testimony, sir, and it's something that I've asked and our mission assurance is getting to the bottom of. And there were two-man counter-sniper teams from the locals that were in that AGR building.
And so at some point they just left?
That I don't have an answer for you on that, Senator, but it seems to me that if even one of them left, there should have been remaining some additional eyes left in that building.
Yep. That seems like something that maybe should be one of the very first questions you address. I'm actually surprised that you don't know that already, and I'd ask that you submit to us in writing what you learn as soon as you learn it. Will you commit to that?
Yes, sir.
What can you tell me about? Well, let me just state this way. Multiple requests were made by Trump's protective detail and by Trump's campaign team to the Secret Service for additional resources. I'm told that those were denied. And as I recall, the Secret Service spokesperson initially denied that such requests were made and denied. Why not tell the truth from the outset? What were they trying to do there?
So, Senator, I don't think there was any intention to mislead.
Seems like a pretty material fact, doesn't it?
Yeah, you'd think so. Rowe testified before the Senate committee yesterday, admitting that local law enforcement officers had spotted the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, on the roof where he eventually opened fire. So they're saying, wait a minute, that the local law enforcement spotted the guy. So it's their fault. Wait a minute, I thought you said you couldn't see them. So you didn't see them? What's the real story here? Yet, despite this incredible piece of information, there was zero communication with the Secret Service agents on the ground. Zero. They were left in the dark, unaware of the impending threat that the shots rang out. So why are they withholding information as to the communications before, during, and after the attack? Why? You only withhold information if you have something to hide, right? Commander of the Beaver County Emergency Services Unit, Patrick Young, is now refuting statements from the acting Secret Service Director, Ronald Rowe. Responding to his messages yesterday, saying who testified before the Senate, Young says his local snipers were never directed to guard the location of that the Secret Service claims. Listen.
Secret Service, he showed a window that was maybe there. Right here, exactly, looking out to the roof.
No, that's not where we were assigned. We were assigned over here in those first two windows.
So he's wrong about the assignment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
anybody write that down anywhere?
I mean, it's unbelievable. How did such colossal failures even happen in the first place? Why are they withholding this information that could show us stand down orders and more? Also, a Secret Service agent has come forward in a new memo that's been circulating among Secret Service staff. He says there will be another attempt to kill Trump before the November election. And he says that could come as early as September. Real Clear Politics got the memo and interviewed the sniper, withholding his name so that he's not gone after by his superior officers. Here's Real Clear Politics. A Secret Service counter-sniper who called for the firing or resignations of all top agency leaders in a scathing email confirmed to colleagues Monday night that he meant to send the missive to every employee on the agency's uniform division. The sniper told his colleagues in 2 emails Monday night that he no longer could contain his anger after an enduring cover-your-own-ass culture for years at the agency, and after 2 weeks of obfuscation and outright lies by Secret Service leaders in the wake of the July 13th assassination attempt against President Trump that killed firefighter Corey Compertore and critically injured 2 others. Meanwhile, let's talk about the FBI now. The Secret Service grappled with their internal failings. The FBI was busy crafting a narrative that conveniently fit a political agenda. I mean, I can read it no other way because it's lying by omission, right? The FBI said during the hearing that Crooks harbored far-right extremist views, and he was anti-Semitic, and he was anti-immigrant. Oh, listen.
While the investigation has not determined motive, the investigative team continues to review information from legal returns, including online and social media accounts. Something just very recently uncovered that I want to share is a social media account which is believed to be associated with the shooter in about the 2019-2020 timeframe. There were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature.
So, interestingly, the more recent posts in 2021 unequivocally supported Biden, but he failed to mention that. Left that part out. That's lying by omission, right? Here's the kicker. His team knew about this, omitted this in their initial testimony, selectively presented information to Congress to paint Crooks as a far right-wing extremist. And there was, in fact, a lot of evidence in these messages that he was a pro-Biden supporter who praised Biden's lockdowns, and he also praised his open border policies. Okay. So we didn't get to learn that during the testimony. It's kind of curious. The FBI also said they were still reviewing radio communications from that day. Yet earlier, during the Secret Service testimony, they said they had not saved any radio communications. So how are you reviewing radio communications the Secret Service says they don't have access to or they're deleted? A lot of questions from the Secret Service and the FBI and this new vantage point of this new video of the shooter from this new vantage point. In addition to which, Patrick Young and the local law enforcement, who are clearly being thrown under the bus, we're led to believe they were in charge of this roof. And that's what the Secret Service is saying. Yet they never had any meetings about the roof. They never had any communications with them, even after they identified the shooter and they saw him walking across the roof. Cover up. I'd like to learn more about this upcoming assassination plot that the Secret Service knows about. And of course, I've maintained on this show, sadly, that they're never going to let President Trump become president of the United States again. And they're going to do everything in their power to keep it from happening. Whether you like the guy or not. Like, that's exactly what's happening right now.
We detain some people. Okay, detain whoever you want. I'll get to them later. Like, what? Wait, are there innocent people being detained downstairs? Yeah, we'll get to them.
Well, and also not just detained, water tower.
Yeah.
The drone. Yeah. Discussions about the water tower, the drone, a bike. Whose bike is this? Is it his bike? How did he get here? How did he climb up on the roof? Wait a minute. So the sniper through the window saw him, took pictures, sent them off. A sniper right through the window saw this guy climbing up here with a gun and willfully let him sit there. Willfully let him shoot at President Trump. A stand down. You let this man shoot at innocent people, killing innocent people in the audience, life flighting other individuals to the hospital, and nearly killing President Trump. So you see him and you let him do it. That's essentially what we got from this phone call. Who ordered this stand down? Who was the person, who were the snipers that were seeing this guy on the roof that said, don't shoot this guy, don't do anything about this guy, basically allowing him to shoot President Trump?
This comment from Welsh in the chat said, it's like a Naked Gun movie.
Right.
It totally is.
Yeah, it is exactly.
And the guy,
like Officer
the guy
Drebin
even said, he said, I lost sight of him. Like, I saw this person of interest. I lost sight of him. It's like, well, why did you lose interest too? Like, do you not have object permanence? like he sees the guy and he's like, oh, that looks suspicious. Oh, wait, no, I don't. What was I talking about again? Never mind. Like, what the hell? Figure out where he went.
He had to go back on TikTok. So, in other words, we now have Secret Service on camera admitting that a second person was detained. Okay, who's that person? Who is this second person? So let's play just that piece of it again. Well, listen.
He's the one that sent the pictures out. I don't know if you got the same ones I did.
I think I did, yeah. He's like got his glasses on and he's...
So we had the picture of that.
I got that
okay,
picture.
And then this is his bike with the stuff. And our sniper seen him walking away from that, I believe.
Okay.
But he would be right inside that window. He's the one that physically seen this, sent the pictures, and called it out.
Okay, so, and we have somebody detained, correct?
That I don't know.
People detained on this side. Right. Our guy that was just up here told me that there's a guy detained.
Okay, so you saw your snipers, not only the sniper through the window, but another sniper, another individual saw him on a bike and also let him go and let him carry out this assassination attempt. So now multiple individuals in confirmation from the Secret Service and law enforcement admitting to the Secret Service agent that they had this guy in his sights and they just basically let him get away with it.
So he's saying, I think we had another perpetrator detained over here. And they're saying, well, a couple of people are detained over there. Who was detained in total?
We'd love to know that.
Can we just get a list of that?
Did you? And also,
were some innocent and were some bystanders? Were some interested parties? Who?
And the photo of the bike, can we see that, please? The stuff on the bike, as they said, the stuff on the bike. What's the stuff on the bike? Can you be more specific about that? Also, the water tower. Now, I want you to pay close attention to the chatter, not the guys talking on camera. I want you to listen to the radio chatter from the team on the radio, talking about sending a team to the water tower. Listen to that piece of this.
Right. So I got no problem detaining them. Again, I'm just trying to detain those guys, find out what they know, who they are.
We got a squad looking for.
I'm trying to get clear information to relay back to DC.
Bring control to the water tower.
We have one shooter.
Bring control to the water tower. To the water tower. That's the second time the water tower is referenced in this. with a team going to the water tower and a second reference to the water tower in this video. A lot of questions about this cover-up. In addition to the rooftop video, new information about the white van that had allegedly belonged to the shooter. This photo from Billy Toma. This van we confirmed here on this show was found 10 miles away. 10 miles away. The van that was then towed 10 miles away. We spoke to Melody Hook, who was an eyewitness. She was there that day at the rally with her family, witnessed the shooting, witnessed Corey being killed just a few seats away from her, behind President Trump, and then receives a phone call from her friend who lives in the area, FBI police at her house, bomb squad, because this white van was parked in front of her house 10 miles away. Listen.
They found the white van. The white van was found. She saw them tow it from right around her location. It was right next door to her.
10
the white
miles.
Van that was supposedly full of explosives, and that guy was supposed to have had a detonator on him. Now you tell me why he goes to all the hassle when he has a van full of explosives and a detonator. Why was it parked 10 miles away from the fairgrounds?
Yeah, why was it 10 miles away? But new photos emerging showing the van at the scene before President Trump was killed. Here is this same van parked underneath the water tower. The exact same van with the MSNBC. There's an MSNBC sticker on the back window. First of all, if you want to really make look like a patsy, I mean, I guess put an MSNBC sticker. The only thing worse would be like putting a Rachel Maddow sticker on that van. So this van has an MSNBC sticker on it. It's the exact same van that was towed 10 miles away, but it was seen underneath the water tower.
That in and of itself should have been suspicious because Rachel Maddow told us that there is a danger to platforming the words of President Trump. That when they let him speak freely, he tells lies and they feel responsible for broadcasting his lies. So she said they don't like to broadcast Trump rallies. So if you see an MSNBC van at a Trump rally, you should be suspicious right out of the gate.
Well, I'm also suspicious, as Melnot points out on our Rumble chat, wasn't he riding a bike? Oh, was that his bike?
Who had
with
the bike?
Stuff? So you can't ride two vehicles.
So he parked the van under the water tower, rode the bike from the van to the building, shot him. Then his ghost went back, got in the van, drove it 10 miles, and then I guess the Ghostbusters got him. So case kind of see what the problem is.
This is like one of those riddles that you'd give for your kids. You know, okay, you have a canoe. You're on one side of the lake. There's a wolf. There's a wolf and a lion with you.
Yeah.
How do you get the wolf across the lake with the one canoe without sinking the canoe?
Yeah.
You know. That's exact. So there's a white van that mysteriously is not there anymore and then is towed 10 miles away. And then according to testimony today from FBI Director Christopher Wray, they found all kinds of explosives in this van. They weren't like amateur explosives. They were fairly sophisticated. And of course, the powers that be only want you to focus on Thomas Matthew Crooks, one shooter, one lone gunman. Don't ask about anyone else. He even told under testimony, no conspiracy. There was one guy. There's one guy to my knowledge. Really? Okay. And they're spilling the beans about this one guy. They're really now effusive about it. His drone, his bombs, his Google search history. They're telling all of it right now today in testimony just a few minutes ago. So, in front of the Judiciary Committee today, FBI Director Christopher Wray said the shooter, they examined his laptop and said that on July 6th, he did a Google search for how far away was Oswald from Kennedy. Watch.
One of the things that I can share here today that has not been shared yet is that we've just in the last couple of days found that from our review, to your point about devices, analysis of a laptop that the investigation ties to the shooter reveals that on July 6th, he did a Google search for, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy? And so that's search obviously is significant in terms of his state of mind.
Wow.
He thought he'd get a bigger reaction on that.
That is the same day that it appears that he registered for the Butler rally.
Wow, the same day. These are amazing coincidences. As someone in the chat here just pointed out. Yeah, I misspoke. I didn't mean that Trump was killed. Mountain Bluebird says, before Trump was killed, get a grip, Clayton. No, I'm sorry. I meant before the attempted assassination of Trump. So, no, Trump is not dead, just to be clear. But Corey,
neither is Jimmy Carter.
But yes. Anyway, moving the van. So it seems like they really want you to focus on this one individual. Ray also explained how it looked like he was able to get the gun there. It's a collapsible stock, he said. What about metal detectors, backpacks that weren't allowed there, but suddenly somehow he was allowed to bring a ladder and a gun, even though it was a collapsible stock? Okay, they wouldn't have checked that. What about the drone? Oh, yeah, we got detailed information on that, too. They've gone through the drone footage, and so they really are putting this whole detail together for you to believe that this is one guy. Watch.
Tell me about the drone. You act like you wanted to fill us in on that. Fill us in.
So we have recovered a drone that the shooter appears to have used. It's being exploited and analyzed by the FBI lab. The drone was recovered in his vehicle. So at the time of the shooting, the drone was in his vehicle with the controller. In addition, our investigation has uncovered.
Do you know what time of day he flew it, and if he flew it on the day of the shot?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So in addition, it appears that around 3:50 p.m., 4 o'clock in that window on the day of the shooting, that the shooter was flying the drone around the area
2 hours.
About 11 minutes. I want to be clear, but when I say the area, not over the stage and that part of the area itself, but I would say about 200 yards, give or take, away from that. We think, but we do not know. So again, this is one of these things that's qualified because of our ongoing review, that he was live streaming, viewing the footage from that, again, about 11 minutes in around the 3:50, 4 o'clock p.m. range.
2 hours before, he's flying a drone in the vicinity of the route.
About 200 yards away, yes.
200 yards. Okay, that's important information. What about the bombs that we've heard about in the shooter's car?
So again, the FBI lab is exploiting those explosive devices.
Yep.
We've recovered 3 devices, 2 in his vehicle and 1 back in his residence.
Are these what you would call, your experts would call, sophisticated operations, or this? I don't know. That's what I've been told by people who have some understanding of this area.
Yeah, I think it's. We've seen more sophisticated and less. I would say these are relatively, again, keyword, relatively crude devices themselves, but they did have the ability to be detonated remotely. And so to that point, in addition to the 2 devices that we recovered out of his vehicle, there were receivers for those 2 explosive devices with the devices. And then on the shooter himself, when he was killed by law enforcement, he had a transmitter with him.
So G. Fontes, thank you for your $1 Rumble rant, says, and this is the point I wanted to make, and thank you for making it for me. Christopher Wray has never before answered questions from Congress about any ongoing investigation. Why now? Right. I mean, he was like a 13-year-old girl, like just like talking like, like, oh my God. You want to know something else about Thomas Matthew Crooks? He also loved to play, lacrosse. Like it was on and on and on. Every little detail you could possibly want to know about this guy, Christopher Wray, is out there telling us all about it, which is stunning. What about the ladder?
Well, don't you find it very reminiscent of the Kennedy thing? Because it's like they have their narrative, and you have people during Kennedy saying there was a second, third shooter from the grassy knoll, all this other stuff. But those people are painted conspiracy theorists. They're crazy. And so it's like they have this narrative they're trying to push again with the solo shooter. And then for 61 years, the Kennedy thing has been wrapped up and sealed, and they won't give you more information. So they're saying they're going to be transparent, but they're obviously pushing a narrative because people are saying there's more information, and they're not even talking about that. So they want us to believe it was one person again. It just feels so reminiscent of the Kennedy thing.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, we had to wait till a House investigation for them to say there was a conspiracy, decades later in the 1990s. Alberta Prepper says he just said he found the drone in his vehicle 10 miles away 2 hours before. He must be a marathoner, as it takes a person 3 hours to walk one way. Yeah, again, how is this guy getting there 10 miles from his vehicle? He's got a bike, he's got a drone, he's got a backpack, he's got a collapsible stock, a gun. He's also got a 5-foot ladder and a larger ladder, we now know. Mm-hmm. So according to Thomas Massey, asked him about this question. What about the ladder that he brought? Any info there at all about this ladder? Oh, yes, he even had a bloody receipt for purchasing the ladder. They found a bloody receipt right inside of his pocket. Watch.
Do you have possession of that 5-foot ladder and the other ladder? And do you know how the taller ladder got to the scene?
So this whole business about the ladder is something we're drilling into more. We do have possession of the 5-foot ladder that he purchased close in time to his attempted assassination. That we traced the purchase of that ladder from a receipt, a bloodied receipt that he had on him at the time his body was recovered on the roof.
A bloody receipt.
Because,
That's amazing.
He may have wanted to return it after.
Right. He's like, I've used it. I don't need it.
To Home Depot after.
What is all this blood on this receipt? Don't mind that. That's amazing, though. A bloody ladder receipt on his body. It's just like finding the passports on 9/11, right? The bloody passports of the World Trade Center bombers, right? In the rubble, unburned. Oh my God, they're passports. These were the guys flying the plane.
Not to return it later, or maybe he wanted to put it on his expense account to the CIA.
Yeah.
So I'm to believe this guy had a rangefinder. He goes and finds the range. Then he has to take a ladder in, go back, get a backpack, bring a backpack in with a weapon, climb up. I mean, it's like this guy just was like making trips in and out. Like it was like he just had free range of the whole place. And he looks suspicious, but yeah.
Yeah, like he was a groundskeeper. He's got a drone. He's got a ladder. Like what? The only thing missing from his arsenal is like a blimp that day. Like he's flying a Goodyear blimp overhead at one point to get some, like a
Did
Snoopy
he also
aircraft.
have some Lunchables because he needed to have eaten? This is a lot of work. Just wondering.
We'll find those bloody receipts, too, that he also bought. It's also remarkable that the Oversight Project has been tracking cell phones that were coming in and out of Thomas Crook's homes in the days leading up to the shooting. And someone who regularly visited Crook's home, and as Oversight Project points out here on the screen, someone who regularly visited Crook's home and work also visited a building in Washington, D.C., located in Gallery Place. This is in the same vicinity of an FBI office, and that happened on June 26th, 2023. Whose device is this that was near an FBI office in Washington, D.C., and then was also in Crooks's home prior to the shooting? Interesting. Also, according to the Oversight Project, we found a device linked to Crooks's work that traveled to Butler, Pennsylvania on July 4th and July 8th. This device stopped all activity on July 12th, one day before the shooting. Stopped working. Interesting. And to wrap this up, meanwhile, yesterday, the Secret Service told the Trump campaign, do not hold any more large outdoor rallies because we can't secure your safety. That means no more rallies like this, where there were 100,000 people in Wildwood, New Jersey. 100,000 people doing barbecues, tailgating, selling Trump merchandise, hanging out before the rally. As Zero Hedge reports, when you nix outdoor rallies, it's going to hit the Trump campaign squarely in the wallet because it's much more expensive to rent out major indoor arenas, very expensive, and instead of like a farmhouse field like we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania. And it will also hold far fewer individuals. In fact, different field houses can hold about 9,000, 10,000, and Trump will do a lot of these field houses in smaller towns that doesn't have like a massive arena like Fiserv Arena or something like that in Milwaukee. So,
okay.
Yeah, but it sounds like even if he does that like in an indoor venue, it'd just be like what the Secret Service is going to be like. No, our purview is the front door, and we don't worry about the side doors. We're not guarding those. So just the front door. That's all we're supposed to guard. The side doors.
Let's not forget the slopes of the aisles.
I was going to say, the roof of these things. I mean, very slopey. You know, these field houses, very, very slopey. They're round, so you got to be very, very careful about that.
But also in an indoor arena, you don't have to bring your own ladder. There are ladders up to the rafters. Oh yeah. So there's a convenience there. If that's what you're going for.
We have been reporting from day one that someone was on that water tower. And now 10 eyewitnesses, 10, have come forward to confirm that, yes, someone was on that water tower. So you can throw all these 10 people out. You can say, oh, they're just nuts. You know, they're just Trump supporters. They're just nuts. Or you could listen to them. Who was on that water tower the day that President Trump was shot? And now we have video of a figure, someone on that water tower. Now, initially, RSBN Network originally aired this wide-angle footage from their live stream on their X account during this day. We've now zoomed in and added some text so you can see a figure moving on top of this water tower. So take a look at your screen here.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Now you see that figure disappear.
Wait.
Now you see that figure reemerge. Okay. Now the figure reemerges. So interesting, right? Now we're going to zoom in. You can see this dark figure at the very top here as President Trump is speaking right before the shots are fired. And then this person right after, about 4 seconds after the shots are fired, steps out. You can listen to the ducks out of the view.
And they had been right by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But what we do know...
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, it's the sniper, and he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
Gentleman behind me, I was one seat, he was to the right of me. He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here.
So unbelievable. And almost everyone in the chat is saying, I see it. Yes, I see it. I knew right from the beginning that this was suspect.
Yes, it is sort of Bigfoot-esque because it's such a zoom, right? Someone in the chat is saying this looks like Bigfoot, but it's clearly something moving of its own accord that is not an animal.
Large. It's not a bird,
right?
Which you wouldn't see. Some people are like, oh, no, because you see the X on the front of it, which is the painting. And maybe we can play it again here. How many of you guys in the chat want to see this again? So we're going to roll it again. I won't talk over it this time. I want you to watch, though, as this figure steps in and steps back. Right after the shots are fired, step right before, and then right after the shots are fired, 4 seconds after, steps back. Watch.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, water towers don't...
That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
So that's what we have today on this water tower angle. Again, a number of eyewitnesses. It was started out as 2, then 3, then 4, now 10 eyewitnesses coming forward to confirm. And of course, people are asking, hey, whatever video you have, you were there. If you shot video, any angle, it doesn't matter. And even if you shot it an hour ahead of time, it doesn't matter. Please send in your video so that we can analyze it and take a look from different locations and angles to confirm all of this. Everyone had an iPhone.
Who's saying this? Every investigation now, we have 10.
Right.
So who specifically wants the video?
I do.
Oh, you.
I'm calling for it. I haven't seen anyone asking for it other than, it's just people on social media who want it. But
okay.
Well, at least we know that the congressional hearings they're going to have is going to clear this all up so that we know exactly what's going on. At least we have that confidence.
Well, right. So how many, though, do we have? It's hard to count now. We have the Senate oversight. We have DHS, Department of Homeland Security. We have the FBI and Secret Service. And then the Biden administration has separately said that they will investigate. Have I missed any? So how do we have any confidence that this is overlapping use of our tax dollars because we can't trust any one of them? Well, so that's not awesome.
We have a redacted investigation, which is free because this show show is free, right? So
right. And Speaker Johnson has also ordered a House investigation. So that's how many? 6, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they said they're going to be transparent with the American people. So, we have to take faith in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable video. Well, senators finally got their private meeting with the FBI and the Secret Service, and we now know that Senator Marsha Blackburn says that the Secret Service knew about a threat prior to President Trump walking out on stage. That is confirmed. We know of a threat before the president comes out on stage. Why in the hell did you let him come out on stage? And also, why did you not let his team know about the threat? She learned this from a briefing with the Secret Service and the FBI, did Senator Marsha Blackburn. And now it's been confirmed that the Secret Service saw the shooter on the roof 20 minutes before he allegedly opened fire. And I say allegedly opened fire because I'm not convinced that he fired anything, to be honest with you. I'm not convinced that Thomas Matthew Crooks is the guy that we're even looking for. Maybe a part of it, but he's the alleged shooter. They saw him 20 minutes on the rooftop before he fired a shot. Watch.
The stunning new images tonight, the new details from the investigation into the assassination attempt on former President Trump. Video obtained by ABC station WTAE appearing to show the alleged gunman Thomas Crooks walking the perimeter of the rally about 1 hour before the former president was shot. And tonight, the FBI briefing lawmakers, and a disturbing timeline has now emerged. The gunman was actually identified as a person of interest 62 minutes before the first shots were fired. He approached security, but when he saw the magnetometers, he apparently backed away. And the Secret Service saw him on that roof a full 20 minutes before he fired at the former president.
Yeah, 20 minutes. I see people in the chat saying 3 hours. Yeah, they reported he came initially 3 hours ahead of time. Also, we have independent verification that Trump campaign had sent out emails prior to the arrival of individuals coming to the event, and they were told under no uncertain circumstances, absolutely no bags. No bags are allowed to be brought in here. Nothing like that. And of course, we now know that he brought a backpack in. How did the Secret Service allow a person of interest to bring a backpack in? Not only that, a ladder and a rifle, but that's just a separate part of this whole story.
Here's the thing, just how batshit this is, that this guy didn't show up like a week before and plan this thing out. He's literally planning this assassination attempt right there in front of Secret Service. They're watching him do it. I mean, it's like you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail when the guards are guarding the prince in the castle and he's like writing the note and he fires it out the window and they're just staring at him the whole time. It's like that's like what's going on. Yeah, exactly. This guy's like planning this assassination attempt right under the nose of Secret Service. They're watching him do it. And they do nothing. I mean, that just blows my mind.
Yeah, they have the video of him an hour ahead of time, just like walking the grounds. He's like, this building right here would be a really good spot.
He had a rangefinder on him. He was using a rangefinder that you use in golf to know how far to drive. So and they even mentioned, the police mentioned that.
Exactly.
That's wild.
What's amazing to me, so again, to Philip's point, that's why this is leading me to believe. Again, this is me saying this, okay, leading me to believe all of these data points of him being there, being seen, he's wandering, he's almost trying to be as conspicuous as possible, right? So that we all believe, this is the guy. We want you to walk around. We want you to walk around so that, if people have cell phone cameras, just walk around and just kind of walk around so that later on we'll have video of you just kind of walking around. That's what this is leading me to believe right now. They wanted him to be as conspicuous as possible. Now, that's me speculating. Okay, we step out of the realm of facts here, which we've just shown you, to me speculating. But why else would he be walking around as a data point? We know that he goes through the magnetometer. He's got a backpack.
Let them see you. Yeah. Act suspicious.
Walk with a ladder. Walk with a gun.
Yes, you are the patsy, so play the role, please.
Yeah, people need to see you in order to be the patsy.
That's what it
Harvey
feels
Oswald.
like, right? And again, this is speculation at this point.
Yeah.
What we're talking about right now.
Anyway, so Senator Marsha Blackburn says, I just got off a briefing with the Secret Service, the FBI. I'm appalled to learn that the Secret Service knew about a threat prior to President Trump walking on stage. I have no confidence in the leadership of Director Cheadle and believe it's in the best interest of our nation if she steps down from her position. The Secret Service, of course, has blamed the failure on local police in Butler, Pennsylvania. They said they assigned the building where the shooter was to the local police, but then the local policeman told Fox News that was not true. So there's seems to be some consternation between local police, that could be state police, and the Secret Service. But ultimately, Secret Service has the day. They have the buck stops with the Secret Service. So you can blame it and point the fingers all you want. But if you're not marshaling your soldiers properly, that's a failure of you, the Secret Service. They say they were the only ones responsible for this. The local police says we're only responsible for traffic detail, which would mean the Secret Service is lying and, of course, pointing the fingers here. Of course, Cheadle is in hot water. I can't believe she still has a job at this point. As we reported yesterday here on the show from the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas has basically been telling her to keep her mouth shut. Don't do interviews. Don't talk. They didn't want her testifying. Mm-hmm. They don't want her meeting right now with senators, which is unbelievable. And last night, though, for some strange reason, Kimberly Cheadle shows up at the Republican National Convention. So she's at the RNC in Milwaukee, and apparently she was holed up in a suite upstairs. And then she walks out, and people saw her. They're like, wait a minute. That's the director of the Secret Service is here at the RNC? Talk about being conspicuous, right? Then senators saw her. They confronted her. She tried to run away from U.S. senators. John Barrasso, Marsha Blackburn. Watch this moment. She's trying to run up the stairs.
This is exactly what you were doing today.
This
on the call.
was an assassination attempt. You owe the people answers. You owe President
She's like,
Trump.
let me go up the stairs. Let me get away from these senators. It's not like they're just random people. They are senators of the United States asking her questions. They finally catch up to her, and they demanded answers. Listen to Senator Barrasso finally grilling her when she has nowhere else to run. Watch this.
Questions that we wanted to ask, we felt we didn't get any of the responses that were necessary from you. Very disappointing in your leadership. I have called for your resignation, and I rather you resign tonight or start answering our questions right now about the death threat to President Trump and allowing him to go on stage in Pennsylvania at a time when you'd already been alerted that there was somebody with a spotter, all these situations already identified an hour before, and you let him go on stage without the knowledge of him, the team on the ground, and you put him within less than an inch of his life.
Unbelievable. Now, MSNBC... Go ahead.
If this doesn't show you that she doesn't make good decisions, I don't know what does. Where in what world would she think right after this happened that she would walk around at a Trump rally, basically, is what the RNC is now, and think that she was just going to, just walk around and hello,
Why
hey,
was she
everybody.
There?
Yeah.
Right.
Is
Unless
she there
the
to show
optics
leadership?
are, oh, wait, I got to make sure that Trump is safe.
So I'm here to make sure he's safe.
Right.
Yeah.
That
really?
makes no sense.
Is she ever involved in a field operation?
She could have avoided all that if she could run faster than a 19-minute mile.
Yeah, and I think those stairs look pretty steep. That looked pretty dangerous walking up those stairs.
That was a slope. So that was a slope. So that's why she was so slow on those stairs. Secret Service agents can't go up slopes pretty fast.
Yeah.
The other piece, Joy Reid, MSNBC. Joy Reid, of course, nut job over at MSNBC. She tweeted out a video, not of her on the MSNBC set, but it was a private video where she's like, I'm not convinced President Trump was even shot. I think that we need answers. She said, I don't know that he was hit with a bullet. He might not have even been hit with a bullet. He might have just been hit with some piece of glass. He might not have been hit with anything. We don't know. We demand answers.
With a tortilla? Okay.
Maybe a tortilla chip.
Could have been.
Have you ever bit down hard on a tortilla chip?
No.
Might get a bloody mouth. So Joy Reid over at MSNBC thinks this is a conspiracy and maybe it was staged.
That's so interesting because she doesn't think COVID is a conspiracy. She didn't think the Hunter Biden laptop was a conspiracy. There's a lot of things she doesn't think are conspiracies when it doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah, or she does think they're conspiracies.
But this, okay, got it. Play that out. Tell me. I'm interested.
Thanks, Joy Reid.
Yeah.
Well, all of the drama surrounding President Biden dropping out has sucked up the news headlines. Kamala Harris becoming president of the United States. There was an assassination, by the way, of a former president that has many more questions than answers this morning. And this weekend, we now have confirmation that there was more than one shooter. There was a conspiracy to assassinate the president of the United States. We don't need to wait for Congress to wrap up their investigation grilling Director Cheadle of the Secret Service. We already have independent verification of this, and from sources from the Secret Service and without, and eyewitnesses and audio forensics. So I don't give a rat's ass what Director Cheadle has to say. she's proven herself worthless. This weekend, we do have confirmation there was more than one shooter. There was a conspiracy to assassinate the President of the United States, and there was a mysterious man in a gray suit that no one can find for some reason. He's gone dark. What the hell is happening? Senator Ron Johnson told Maria Bartiromo that he has learned that right after Thomas Matthew Crooks was shot and killed, a guy in a gray suit just climbed up the ladder and on the roof where Crooks was dead, laying there dead, and started asking the local law enforcement to send photos of Crooks's body to him. Like, here's a cell phone number. I want you to send these photos to me right now. The man didn't identify himself, and it's very curious that he didn't have a cell phone on him. Right? Who in this day and age goes to a Trump rally wearing a suit and you don't have a cell phone on you? So he couldn't take photos himself. He said, just take the photos and then send them to this phone number. Oh, that's curious. So you don't want us tracking cell phone data. I guess that's the point, right? We don't want to track you. So you're here by yourself without a cell phone on you. Very, very curious. Law enforcement then acquiesced. They sent photos. I've seen these photos. We're not going to show them to you. Crooks with a hole through his forehead. When the man was contacted, he said he was an ATF agent, but now he's gone totally dark. He's silent. We can't find him. Senator Ron Johnson explained these new details on Maria Bartiromo's show. Watch.
The local officers went up to that roof and started taking pictures of the dead body, of the shooter's body. So suddenly a guy in a gray suit walks up the ladder and goes up to the roof. And this guy in the gray suit, who didn't appear to have credentials, everybody assumed he was the Secret Service. So he tells one of the local law enforcement, send those pictures to this cell phone. And he gives him a number. And everybody assumed, oh, that must be Secret Service. It turns out it wasn't Secret Service.
Some guy in a suit walks up the ladder. They believed he was Secret Service. I'm not sure whether they gave credentials, but that's part of the, again, Maria, this is so preliminary. I'm issuing this. I'm providing this information, a much more detailed timeline to prompt others to come forward. We need to complete this picture. We have a lot of puzzle pieces to fill in here.
Is it odd to you that the locals were being told to send the pictures to the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency, ATF? Where does ATF come in?
It's very odd. The oddity starts with the fact that local law enforcement were just tasked with securing the perimeter, told to go cover that AGR building, not really told where to set up, so they set up on the second floor. They went to that AGR building at 10:30 in the morning. So they were stationed there well in advance. You know, they noticed this suspicious character at 5:10. They took a photo of him at 5:14. The president was shot at 6:11. You know, so again, an hour has passed. You know, again, they don't communicate. They didn't have communication, same channels with their law enforcement patrol officers. They weren't in communication with the Secret Service other than going through the Butler County Communication Center. So again, it's everything you would assume about Secret Service protection of a former president was not true. It didn't happen.
Oh, that's a senator. It's not some Yahoo.
Right.
You know?
Peddling conspiracies.
That's a senator of the United States. A highly respected senator, one of the few, by the way. Now, we reported last week, by the way, Frank Rizzo in our chat, Frank Rizzo, I love that, it says he was the Iran guy, I guess. Right, so that's the point, right? Like over the weekend, I pointed out how all of this talk now you're hearing, it's like, oh, it must have been Iran that was involved in this. Like he had, he had phones that were set, he had phones, encrypted phones, 3 of them or so that were set out and overseas encrypted phones and all of this stuff that I detailed this weekend. So I guess it is the Iran guy.
You know what
I think
I'm
it's
waiting
just the
for?
Rebranding of
I was just going to say, I'm waiting for them to say, oh, because of this crowd, what was it called? Crowd fund or whatever, the thing that happened with Microsoft, CrowdStrike. Like, oh, we lost all the data. We lost the recordings. We lost the, all this data we've gathered. Like, because it just seems coincidental that happened. Yeah. So I'm waiting for that to be the excuse that we can't be transparent because unfortunately we lost it all.
Yeah. Oh, we lost it all. All the data, like going back to 2015, all of our data has been wiped. So
wait, what was Philip going to say? I don't want to. discouraged.
Oh, it wasn't super important. I was going to comment that it could just be a rebranding of the Men in Black. They're now the Men in Gray. They're much more
I had that thought too.
They're
Yes.
David Byrne oversized suits on a hot day. That's what they are. Now, we reported last week on our show that our sources were telling us that the shots were fired from multiple locations in the direction of the water tower. Now, we know that there were at least 2 shooters. That has been confirmed. There was a second shooter, according to nearly a dozen eyewitnesses, multiple audio forensics analysis, and now we're hearing from United States members of Congress that that is the case. Chris Martinson, a PhD, posted this on X, a fascinating video. I'm not going to go through all of it here, but the narrative of Crooks being a lone gunman is 100% provably false, which means any deflection to investigating security lapses is evidence of a cover-up. The evidence I present today comes from analyzing and then comparing the audio files from 2 separate video recordings, one taken right in front of Trump, the other from just to the side of the American Glass building that Crooks was spotted on. As a reminder, audio forensics experts have already concluded that the audio signatures from 3 weapons could be resolved from whichever audio recordings they analyzed. Yes, the long-lost art form of audio forensics, which is highly valuable, which is how we were able to deduce multiple problems in the conspiracy against JFK. Here is Chris Martinson explaining at least a piece of this. Again, it's a 30-minute and deep dive analysis. I'm going to show you just a few key moments here of his analysis. Watch.
Here's just the first 3 shots from that video. I haven't done anything, no audio. I haven't done any enhancements. This is both of these video audio pieces are exactly pulled straight from the video itself. Here's 1, 2, and 3 to start. Okay, listen to that again. And one more time. Okay, now let's listen to the next string. Ooh. We just have an absolutely different sound between the first 3. There's no echo. It's much further away. It's more muffled. It's just not in the same place at all. But these next ones, very different sound. Totally different weapons. Okay.
Totally different weapons, totally different location, and the echo is completely different because the echo reverberating off of buildings, while the other is way far away, in our estimation, 488 yards away, which is not where Thomas Crooks was laying. So now here is the audio analysis, or his discussion of this from the second video, and how he says this is clearly 2 shooters.
And remember, we already have the analysis from audio experts elsewhere saying there's a difference between weapon A and weapon B. And I can show you that the rounds fired from weapon B were also aimed at the stage. Okay, so this is important. 2 weapons, one fires a string of 3, another fires a string of 5 or 6, depending on how we count, and off they go. And they were also out hitting the crowd and headed towards Trump. Okay, this is important because now we do not have a lone gunman anymore. Okay.
So, and very important to know that these were not like Secret Service snipers. These were being fired at the stage. The head of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, still has a job today, which is stunning. And today she spent the morning dodging questions on Capitol Hill in front of Congress, and it didn't go well. So here's some flavor of the day.
That is a no. Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th? Yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of shit today. You're just being completely dishonest. Mr. Chairman.
Love Nancy Mace. And watch this stunning moment during questioning by Representative Fallon, and you can see if you can catch something. Pay very close attention to something that she says in response. I almost spit out my coffee when I heard it.
Director, do you have the ability personally, do you have the authority to beef up security of any of your protectees?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So were you also aware there was a credible threat President Trump was facing? He was facing a heightened security threat to a foreign adversary?
Yes.
Okay. So given that there was an increased threat to President Trump's life, was he provided a full security complement akin to what a sitting U.S. president would receive?
He was provided a full complement of security based on the threat assessment that we had.
That's not my question.
And the venue.
My question is, if he'd been the sitting president, would he have had the same security he had on July 13th, or would have been beefed up?
There is a difference between the sitting president.
So your answer is he didn't?
and continuity of government and the responsibility
So he
that we
did
have.
not. Okay, there wasn't a CAT team, full CAT team on site. There wasn't counter-surveillance teams on site. But this is the thing. You just said you had the ability to beef up the security. You knew about the threat, and you didn't. And that's as telling as it is chilling.
Did you catch what she said? Continuity of government? What? Why? Why? There's a difference between the sitting president and the continuity of government and the responsibility that we have, she said. Can you explain that? Continuity of government? Really? Okay, could you elaborate on that? I don't know that Fallon heard it, and I wish that other members of Congress would have heard it and really pushed her on that. What do you mean? Why is there a difference here in the continuity of government? What does that have to do with anything?
Well, okay, then let me see. What are the plans when Obama speaks in public? What are the plans when Bill Clinton speaks in public, or any of the Bushes, or anything like that? So, okay, that's easy to prove. Show us, like, okay, we have tiered Secret Service members and past presidents get the lower tier. Why? Yeah, okay, prove that then. You know, not just act confused that something, I have no answers for you.
Representative Andy Biggs was Mr. Crooks acting alone. She says, I'm going to have to refer you to the FBI once again. Watch.
Your agency has a no-fail mission, and on Saturday, July 13th, your agency spectacularly failed. The failure resulted in the death of Corey Comparator and serious injury to two other rally attendees, David Dutch and James Copenhaver, besides the injuries to President Trump. It is unfathomable that a 20-year-old on the radar of Secret Service and local law enforcement before President Trump went on stage was able to climb onto the roof of a building with a rifle and fire off multiple rounds before he was neutralized. Was Mr. Crooks acting alone?
Again, I would have to refer you to the FBI's investigation.
Was he just a lone gunman?
I would have to refer you to the FBI's investigation for motive.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Why would she dig her heels in and not say this was unacceptable? It won't happen again. The buck stops with me. Someone else can lead this better. Why?
Well, she did say the buck stopped with me like last week, but then she's been kept from speaking. And the only reason she's speaking is because she was subpoenaed.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on. What deep state Alejandro Mayorkas and part of the Biden administration doesn't want her to speak publicly? Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. We can't stand her here on this show, but surprisingly, she asks one of the best questions during this hearing. Listen.
You established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
And so what I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass shootings, from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
A perimeter was established, and even though there were buildings that were outside of that perimeter, it wasn't just that building. There were a number of buildings in the area, and there was overwatch that was created to help mitigate some of those buildings.
Okay.
Great
That's
question.
interesting.
From AOC.
And her answer, well, there's lots of weapons, could have thrown a stone.
So why
from
was the
there.
Pac-Man piece of it cut out? You just decided to...
It would have been just fine if they had a flamethrower, right? And we were thinking that maybe that was a possibility.
We have slingshots. People bring bow and arrow. By the way, she also lied in front of Congress.
That's in bow and arrow range.
Yeah.
It is.
It's in Nerf gun range. She lied in front of Congress when she said that, backpacks are okay. She also talked about a rangefinder. Rangefinder is not suspect. She said backpacks not okay. And yet why did the Secret Service, as part of when they sent out an email to those arriving at this event, say backpacks are strictly prohibited? That's interesting.
Yeah.
So backpacks are strictly prohibited, and we showed those emails here on the show. But now you're saying that's not a problem? So
Did she not know that?
Well, President Trump's plane made an unscheduled stop tonight for electrical failure, quote unquote. But I don't see this as a good sign. And it's been in the air, and some people have thought about alternate methods beyond the typical assassination plot from July 13th that they tried to pull off with Oswald-like flair. And the incredible Secret Service failures involved in that, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, and the root of the Secret Service stand down and how the Secret Service interfaces with this agency that we've been looking at called the Continuity of Government Group. And the overlap between these two is starting to open up in a deeper and deeper way. So this is going to be absolutely fascinating. I got to tell you, as far as the ideas from tonight, you're going to be exchanging pretty deep ideas. There's not going to be a lot of recipe swapping on this one. It is, or drink recipe swapping. This one is going to leave you in quite a state because some of the research is absolutely visceral and opens up many, many doors. And I don't say that lightly. Of course, tonight is the Dark Journalist Special Report. This is Secret Service Stand Down, the assassination revealed. I'm going to show you the roots of some of these characters that were involved in the stand down, and also track the sort of deep state influence on this, going all the way back to the Kennedy assassination directly into the Trump assassination attempt, which I believe is a program that's ongoing and therefore in a very dangerous place as far as our political system is concerned. I think the better we track this now, the better off we'll be. And right in the heart of it is the Continuity of Government Group, the Doomsday Network, quote unquote, in their secret mystery communication system. Start off with a few unusual things about the July 13th attempted assassination on President Trump. Supposedly by Thomas Matthew Crooks. Now, I believe there was a network assisting and getting ready to eliminate Trump there, and they just threw Crooks into the middle of it. And I think he was programmed and controlled. And I think he was built up for this for a while, I think, from looking at his past. And I think that apparatus on the Continuity of Government side was controlling the Secret Service to stand down through the interface of Homeland Security. And there are people who are starting to wake up. I've been out here swinging a flag to get rid of the Department of Homeland Security for a while. And I'm starting to see people catch on to it. Now, Homeland Security has now moved up to 260,000 employees. Now, just think of that spread out across the country and completely operational. And what we know about them is they're run by this Alexander Mayorkas, and they've allowed a completely open border situation, but they have built up a database of Americans to target and surveil. So they're acting as an extra constitutional force the way the CIA did. What's interesting is the CIA had tremendous influence and has tremendous influence, but they are, we're still talking about 25, 30,000 agents. This apparatus that continues to grow over 250,000 people is a huge problem. It's a huge expense. And it was brought in with the Patriot Act. It was brought in with all the 9/11 junk, which was a product of the Continuity of Government because they activated COG during 9/11. So somehow COG has to enter into the conversation, but it has to enter in correctly and not floating in on somebody's fantasy about what COG can do, but really on the fact ground aspects that we know. And that's why when we bring forward that COG piece, I think it's so illuminating. A couple of things came forward about Crooks. First of all, some of the audio was released from law enforcement that was engaging him early on, because all these people, of course, saw him on the roof about to shoot President Trump, or pointing it out to Secret Service, who didn't seem to care, and law enforcement people who were like, what is going on here? And at one point, these law enforcement people jump up on each other's shoulders and look across, and he actually points a weapon, or whoever that is up there points the weapon at them. Now, it's interesting because they take off at that point, and then the audio goes dead. But later on, as we get audio back from the event, we hear about a guy with a flat face who was creeping up on people during the Butler rally, and who disappeared running into the woods. Now, that's a second person that we're hearing about. The flat face thing is interesting because of, when we think of the actual look of Crooks, he also has a very unusual face. But a couple of things came up. Would-be Donald Trump assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks, this is from the New York Post, practiced firing rounds at his local gun club dozens of times, including on Christmas Day. In the lead up to the rally attack, newly obtained records show the 20-year-old dedicated about 80% of his time to rifle practice during his slew of visits to the Clairton Sportsman Club in Pennsylvania, according to records released by Chuck Grassley. He focused almost exclusively on the rifle range throughout 2024. Now, I've pointed out before with Lee Harvey Oswald, they did the same thing. He had all these appearances at rifle ranges, so it looked like he was gearing up to really, shoot the president. And at one point, he wanted to, be so noticed that he started shooting on the target of somebody else who was at the range. And when they complained, and he said, "Well, I thought I was shooting at President Kennedy. Sorry, my name's Lee Oswald, by the way." So this kind of setup, like what they're doing with Crooks here, is interesting. Of course, originally they said he was part of this rifle shooting class, and the person, the teacher of that class, said no, he never showed up for that. He might have showed up once or twice, but he wasn't part of it. And so there was a lot of discrepancies right off the bat there. A number of unusual things about Crooks, as we've been pointing out in a series of reports, but this one is grabbing me because I think we're looking at doppelgangers throughout. And I think when you get into deep state situations, their utilization of doppelgangers is something that they call a legend inside of intelligence circles. That is, to place different people there who look exactly the same so they be identified. In this case, what I found weird, an FBI spokesperson said investigators successfully accessed Crooks' cell phone and continue to analyze his electronic devices. Now, I want to tell you something, that the Secret Service director who quit, Cheadle, and then her replacement, has come forward saying, "Oh, we couldn't see this and we couldn't see that. And don't worry, though, we're gonna get high tech. We'll get some of that surveillance equipment." They have the most advanced surveillance equipment. In the 1980s, they could look, and it's a part of Senate testimony that got out, they could look underground in the Soviet Union in parking garages and read the license plate.
Wow.
So this is 40 years later. So the Secret Service can see everything. They use thermographic technology. They use satellites. They've got it all. So any of this, "Oh, we couldn't see it," reminds me of the phony COG commander, Van Herk, saying, "Hey, those balloons got through because all of our sensors at NORAD weren't set up to detect balloons. Wouldn't you know it?" Shucks. And Van Herk did it with a straight face. But this whole thing about, "Oh, everything's fixed up now," and as kind of an excuse for this, is beyond ridiculous. They tracked every person. They have facial recognition doing records. They have fusion centers processing this at all times. So the kind of surveillance that they do in a city situation without a rally going on is remarkable. There are cameras everywhere, and they are tracking cars, they're tracking faces all the time. So the idea that the Secret Service couldn't see this guy, or he moved into position without them seeing him, is completely a joke. And the other thing is that supposedly the agents who were in the building that had the view of the roof, that they both got called away. And guess what? Their car didn't work to get back into the building in time for them to see him. Just really ridiculous. After they had already seen him and reported that he was out there. In those types of situations in the Secret Service and in law enforcement, you don't leave your post. So this is highly unusual activity, highly unusual behavior. No, those people weren't fired. Yes, in some cases, the people who weren't fired are actually writing the reports themselves. So the dumb reports that we're getting are from the people who were lax in the first place, or were they lax, or were they under instructions not to do certain things? This is where we're going to get into something very important, which is called the Sphinx Code in Secret Service. And I'm going to tell you where the Sphinx Code comes from. Everyone, you're watching the Dark Journalist Show. This is Secret Service stand down, assassination revealed. In this case, the July 13th attempted assassination by Thomas Matthew Crooks against President Trump. Of course, it's alleged because we don't actually know that that was Crooks there who was doing the shooting, although they made great pains to make it look that way. There's a good deal of research that says that there were 3 shooters involved there that day. And of course, we did have a fatality in the crowd. For those who like to minimize the shooting or to say it was staged in some fashion, all your credibility goes out the window. I don't know. I've seen even halfway decent. It's such a kind of a knee-jerk reaction, I think, to just say everything's fake around the alternative and independent circles. Those people that have pursued that have made themselves look ridiculous, and you should always, of course, look at every event and make sure that, it is what it appears to be. In this case, the problem is they're trying to say that Crooks got on that building and that they couldn't control it and that he got those shots off. Now, the problem is that the shots that were fired at President Trump most likely did not come from Crooks, and they were coming from somewhere else with a sharpshooter, and it just so happened that Trump moved in the middle of all that. And also, some of the people who were shot in the crowd who lived, even though the wounds were severe, they were taking, if you go back and look at those stories, they were taking video. They were taking pictures of the spot where Crooks would have been. So whatever it was, they didn't want us to see. You have to shoot at that person. It's very much like the story of Gordon Arnold in the JFK assassination. He's there, and they try to chase him out of the grassy knoll area before the shooting, saying you can't be there. But then he shows back up and he's shooting, shooting video, and they're shooting guns. And at a certain point, he hears the bullets behind him, and then he hits the deck, and they run up to him and start beating him up and take his camera away. That's part of making sure you have your Patsy story locked and loaded so that people can't take this other evidence and use it against you. That's something to keep in mind in this case. All right, New York Times. Before Crooks became infamous for attempting to kill a former president, he was a student at Bethel Park High School who had graduated in 2022. He didn't submit a senior photo. This is a problem immediately. Why wouldn't he submit a senior photo? So already we're dealing with issues of recognition, facial recognition, and resemblances. According to the yearbook for that year, although he's pictured in yearbooks from other years. So, I'm going to go very far here, but did they take the person who was Crooks, basically, and was he removed from the scene, and did they replace him? Let's just think about that for a moment. I'm going to read you some very unusual testimony that goes back to the Warren Commission, which, by the way, is coming up to a 60th anniversary in September. And I'm going to show you why that's not such a far out idea as we look at this case. And of course. This is Thomas Crook's computer technology course where he says, and I quote, "Hello, my name is Thomas Crooks. I'm currently in the 11th grade at Bethel Park. I've always had an interest in building things. In 2017, my dad and I built our first PC, a gaming machine with a motherboard and radio and R9 graphics card. We later modified the case to include the glass side panel and RGB lighting." Basically, you had kind of a tech geek here who was basically kept to himself and was not particularly popular in school. He was ideal and may have been selected very, very early on. Of course, his appearance in a BlackRock commercial and things of this nature are just unusual breadcrumbs along the way. I wanted to mention also that in talking about the location, when we get into what happened in Butler, that when you look at the Texas School Book Depository as a location, you find a lot of the same unusual anomalies are involved here, which is that how he was placed in the location is unusual. With Crooks, we have him showing up in 3 different ways. We have him showing up in a car, we have him biking, and we have him, in this connected to this van with Arizona plates that they dragged off and no one talks about anymore. And there was witness testimony about the van immediately that said the van parked in front of my house, and that's a place where no one usually parks. But because there was an event going on, I thought, whatever. Later, they found the van full of explosives and dragged it off. And we know that there were trigger devices with Crooks. So whatever they were up to here in terms of laying out the scene, something seems to have gone awry with the fact that the shot missed Trump, and then the follow-up plan seemed to go awry. And it did happen in the Kennedy assassination. They were able to pull off the assassination of the president, but the cover-up of Oswald and the scene of the crime went, shall we say, awry. And remember, we think of this as just the government controlling the whole scene. It's one aspect inside of these secret agencies of the government, and so therefore they're not infallible. And that's a crucial thing to keep in mind as we go forward here. Everyone, you're watching the Dark Journalist Show. This is Secret Service Stand Down, a special Dark Journalist report, Assassination Revealed. And it's an arc of assassination throughout time from 1963 to the attempt on Trump in 2024, and the forces that operate that would give you a security stripping stand down from the Central Intelligence Agency and the Secret Service. This has to be understood as part of an arc of doing business over a long period of time and controlling policy and outcomes, et cetera, including elections. And we see them really moving on that front now. I'm entirely convinced that most of what we're hearing about the shooting in Butler from the Secret Service is completely untrue. And that's a very, very perilous situation for us. And the more that they come forward to try to say, oh, don't worry, we're going to use tech and all the rest. Like I said, they have access to the most sophisticated surveillance equipment that would blow your mind. And of course, many things that we don't even know about. The idea that they couldn't track this kid is a complete joke. So now how can we get into something that's real about a deep state operator who was operated in that system, deeply associated with the Secret Service, who has this kind of fingerprint on him of intelligence deep state work? And I'm going to go through the character of Louis B. Sims, and then we're going to go through another agent because that agent will be directly connected to the continuity of government. And what's interesting is I found him describing how he was recruited, and I think that's going to help us a great deal. Before I go any further, Miss Olivia, you're up.
Okay, so Scott NYC says white van owned by Urick's dad, Arizona plates, and T. Oliver says that van is.
Okay. I just want to say that Urick is the Crooks lookalike, and he was grabbed originally. We don't know what they did with him yet, or he's not in the picture.
I think it's crazy that we haven't had an update on him.
Yeah. The other thing is there was a crazy thing that went over the top that tried to track the van to some Uric family in Arizona, and that was it was a false investigation. So you have to be very careful in the early stages of things. Do you remember when I started the program tonight, someone said, "Hey, Joe Rogan endorsed RFK Jr." It's false. It's a false story. So I have to be careful what we go over the waterfalls with. But thanks for asking. Yeah, what do you got?
Okay. Number 6 says Crooks is called out by police as a guy in white shorts on the rooftop, but Crooks didn't wear white shorts. And Roosevelt Media News says Butler County and PA State are refusing a FOIA request for Crooks's autopsy details.
Yeah, I have a thing here. I have that article about the autopsy. I'm glad you mentioned that. They're withholding it under Butler County rules, which is ridiculous.
Until
It's
when? I mean,
no, that's it.
Like forever? That's it?
Yes. And what's interesting about that is
What rules are those? Did they actually cite the rules? The supposed?
yeah, it's family, like they do in a normal case. If somebody were killed and they wanted to withhold the autopsy, that would be one thing. See, this is weird because they don't have a criminal case against Crooks because he's dead. This is exactly how they did this against Oswald as well. Once he was gone, there were no legal things you could bring to bear. But I will say this, that because this is a federal investigation, they should have access to it, and the public should demand to see the autopsy. One, to see what drugs they were using. Two, what shot was it that actually shot Crooks? If you've seen the visuals from the roof, and they are gruesome, I have some of them here, but you've seen many videos of this. But it is unusual that, just speaking in a general fashion, when you're a sniper and you shoot somebody and they shot him in the head, it's going to splatter all over the roof. And what's strange is there's this weird stream that goes this one thin, kind of railing there where he's lying. So there's something very unusual about that as well. And I think some of the commotion and the men showing up in gray suits very early on. There was a team of Secret Service agents in the Kennedy assassination. There's two different groups of Secret Service agents. One of the group had two red bars over a white background, and that's how they were supposed to spot each other. And they would wear that as a pin. And then another group, the secret group that's involved with the X-Protect group that I follow on this program, the police were instructed that anyone who was wearing X's in their hats as part of the band of their hat was to be allowed equal and easy access and not be stopped and all the rest. So they tip people off by visual. And so the gray suit men represent a kind of highest clearance. So if they show up on something, you give them your materials. So if somebody is tuned in to the way that the Secret Service has set this up, they just show up in the uniform and say, hey, give me this photo or whatever it happens to be. So there seems to be some of that involved in this case. More and more as it comes out, the case is very confusing. And it's by design. But what they were telling us, there's a very good readout about an agent who is tracking Crooks. And he said, he's sitting, this is just before the shooting. He says he's sitting at a picnic table, and then they have him walking away and going towards a convenience store with a gas station, which is in a totally different direction. He does not have time, unless he stops on a dime, runs back. He doesn't have time to do all those things to get into position to shoot. So whoever that was somebody that the agent thought was Crooks. So you have a lot of things going back and forth here. Unfortunately, inside the Secret Service, all they're trying to do is shut this down, very much like the early FBI and Warren Commission around the Oswald case. Interestingly enough, you got another one?
Michael Horton says the FBI hosing the crime scene down is reminiscent of the Deathmobile being washed down outside Parkland within minutes.
I have that picture tonight. I think that picture might be the immortal picture of this assassination attempt, unfortunately, which is them power washing the crime scene, getting rid of the evidence. There have been a lot of FBI problems in relation to President Trump. The phony Russia investigation, all the different things. Peter Strzok. There's a number of stories going out about Strzok now that because the government looked at his texts because of all the illegal things that he was up to, that he sued them and got paid over $1 million. So there's sick payoffs going on in the background. They want to make sure they take care of their people. So getting a real telescopic, wide-angle lens on the deep state corruption involved here is going to help a great deal. It doesn't even necessarily mean being anti-government. What you're doing in a real sense, you're helping the government. This is the weird part, because those individuals inside of that structure are being blackmailed by this thing, and they have been, and it's been under control for a good deal of time. And that's where you get the cover-ups and you get the patsies holding the bag on the other side. So remember that as well, which is when we're exploring a good deal of these things, it's actually a great assist to the government, because for those who want to get to a genuine outcome on this, there are a few people involved in the case tracking it. Senator Josh Hawley has done some real interesting questioning of the Secret Service and others, and he got the whistleblowers coming forward. I think there are aspects in that government structure that want to know what's going on. So keep that in mind as we're going along here. It's not anti-government. It is anti-deep state, which is a totally different thing.